Today is a very special day here in the Transformer world. It is the true 40th anniversary of Transformers today. 40 years ago, May 8th, 1984, the very first issue of the Marvel Transformer comic books debuted. Now, this is special for a lot of different reasons because while we usually associate Transformers as a toy brand, and when we think of the fiction, we more lean towards that of the cartoons, especially with Generation 1. But the comics was where it all began. The comics is where most of those characters truly got their names, their characterization. A lot of the stuff that we celebrate of Transformers today was more spawned from the Marvel comics than it was even the cartoon. And we celebrate today, 40 years ago, when it all began. And I also want to kind of use this opportunity to also look back at some of the stuff leading up to it and some of the true celebrations of the beginnings of Transformers. Because while we look at that very first issue, that very, very first issue of the Marvel run, there was some earlier appearances of Transformers here and there. So we'll go through that. We'll go backwards from it. So, of course, that very first issue of the Marvel Transformers comics was May 8th, 1984, hit the newsstands, issue number 1. There's a newsstand edition, and then there's the direct market edition. The newsstand one was the one that debuted first. The direct market one came out May 22nd, 1984, so just a couple weeks after that. The way to tell the difference between the two is the newsstand edition actually has the UPC code on the bottom left, while the direct market version that came later on, a couple weeks, has a black costume Spider-Man in the corner. And that was the beginning of the beginning. But there was some Transformer stuff that did come before it. So that very same day that Transformers debuted, there also was Marvel Age issue number 17 that hit the newsstands also on May 8th, 1984. And it gave a little preview explaining like, oh, hey, the Transformers are coming, so be sure to pick up that book. And that's what Marvel Age pretty much existed for, which was to talk about new books and stuff that would be hitting the shelves that very same month. So that's kind of what that it was. So in a lot of ways, that first book from Marvel shares the debut also with the Marvel Age issue number 17 if you're a Transformer completist. And it also, I want to remind people, ignore the month that is on the covers of all of these books. That's kind of like, for a lack of better words, the expiration date for comics. It's when they're supposed to be pulled off of the news rack, usually between 2 and 4 months. So that's kind of what that is for. A lot of people get confused and think that's the month that something came out. The very first true appearance of Transformers in any Western media was actually via a very obscure kind of comic book called The Comic Reader, which was a preview and news comic that came out once a month, and it ran from 1963. It debuted in 1963 because that was like the Marvel boom of X-Men, Avengers, Amazing Spider-Man made his debut in 63, and then it ran all the way until late 1984. And The Comic Reader, all those years, was this book that covered all the different companies, Marvel, DC, the even the indie companies. And as a result, they were a very important book for advertisers and stuff like that. And Marvel all the time would send previews and stuff like that to The Comic Reader. And that's where Transformers actually made its first true debut, before a commercial, before a toy hit the shelves, before even that Marvel comic book. And that was The Comic Reader, issue 218, in March of 1984. We got to see Blue Streak for the first time, which, when you think about it, Prowl and Blue Streak have always been associated with the origin of the Autobot emblem. And in a lot of ways, they kind of were maybe the face of the brand, along with Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. And so you got to see Blue Streak there with that little promotion and letting us know that Transformers is coming, and it'll be in April, which actually didn't happen. And it's funny that the April mention was also continued because in the Marvel Age issue, which came out in May, by the way, in that blurb in the Marvel Age issue, they also mentioned that it's going to debut in April, which is incorrect. So the very first true time we saw Transformers was in that comic reader issue. But today is when the comic truly debuted. And that comic is so special. It's got that iconic Bill Sienkiewicz cover. Everyone, loves that cover. So iconic, it's a wild cover. It's super iconic. It's been parodied and homaged by both Transformer artists and people outside of the Transformer bubble. Absolutely love it. Interior art was done by the legendary Frank Springer, who pretty much did that small run of miniseries of the G1 books, as well as the Headmasters books and little things here and there. Bill Sienkiewicz, who did that iconic cover, would oddly enough not do much else with Transformers. He would come back to do issue number 65 and do a Pretender Grimlock cover. And then years later with Dreamwave, he would do Transformers War and Peace #1, the variant cover with Dynamic Forces, which was like limited to 7,000 copies out there. So Bill Sienkiewicz, despite the fact that he created this iconic issue #1 cover, he's only really drawn, Optimus Prime, Shockwave Megatron, Pretender Shell Grimlock, and the small little characters on the cover of that. And that cover is wild, like I said before. It's like it's a 300-story tall, huge Optimus Prime towering over everything, crushing a tiny Starscream, while a half-transformed Gears is shooting at Laserbeak, and you have Buster and Sparkplug Wiki in the background, a wild cover. But Bill Sienkiewicz was known for his very abstract covers and surreal paintings and stuff like that. He was best known for his work with New Mutants and Elektra Assassin, and he did Moon Knight, and all of those covers were very abstract and very different from what was being done with Marvel at the time, with more Bende kind of styled covers and stuff like that. He would go on to even work with Hasbro and other stuff years later with Magic the Gathering card art. So if you have a Magic the Gathering deck and you have an Optimus Prime and a Phyrexian War Beast, you know what's up. You know what's up. But absolutely iconic book. Very important to the Transformers in, the long run of things. And just something really, important to celebrate. And I just wanted to put aside the news today, put aside everything that's going on in the Transformer world, all the announcements. We'll get back to that tomorrow. But today we're just going to celebrate and talk about just how great that Marvel run is and how it all started today. Everything truly started today, May 8th, 1984. Let me know what you think. Did you read the Marvel books? Have you not read them yet? You should really go back and read them. Great stuff. I always tell people, go read the Marvel run. Go read some of the select stories of the UK stuff, because not a lot of the UK stuff is kind of hit or miss, but some of those stories are really good. And then afterwards, go read Simon Furman's Transformers Regeneration, which is because there's two kinds of sequels. There's the G2 book, and then there's Regenerations, and then there's also some Bakon stuff. But Regenerations is kind of like the true sequel, and that's a fantastic run by Simon Furman. So go check that out too. Absolutely fantastic. Just kind of wanted to gush a little bit about a book that I love so dear from a franchise that I love so dear. So let me know what you think about all of this, and we'll end it all with, of course, the commercial of that first comic.
It is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. It is the world of the Transformers.
The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Transformers. Robots in disguise. The Transformers. More than meets the eye.
The Transformers from Marvel Comics.